Hello and welcome. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about Jenkins overview of configure system. Let me log into that in Jenkins console and type that in username and password. You'll be get a skin something like that. So what we are going to talk, there is a two way to navigate into that. First, click on the drop down button and then manage Jenkins and configure system. And alternate way is there, direct click on the manage Jenkins, you'll be get something like a screens, and first options you have to click on the configure system. So configure system, it will be talk about configure global setting and paths, and where we have almost all configurations which is required for the Jenkins. And you can see that like in a home directory, so here we have installed the Jenkins. And if you want to see that in what is that in home directory and what has configured, you can click on the this questions mark button and you'll get that in more details. So for Jenkins, if there is any confusion if you feel, and then without any hesitations you can click on this questions mark, it will be guide you some link or like in some details where you'll see that in what kinds of a variable you have to pass or value into the required field. So let's talk one by one. So this questions mark will be very important for especially all those configurations what we have into the manage Jenkins sections, and even though creating the Jenkins job as well. So first sections we have a home directory where Jenkins is installed. We can copy these ones and check it. In Windows you will see something like that, but in other operating system you will see that in a path. So here we have a Jenkins install into that in and after that we have a system message, so you can put that in a system message as well. And then we have a Maven project configuration. So if you want to configure global Maven options, and then you can see that in more details what are the options you can set it while pressing that in this one. So Maven options you can put that in 1 2.x and that in some other variables. Local repository where we have, so by default one repository will be there into that user home.am2 and repository. Number of executions you can put that into, or by default is 2, you can put that in as per your wish. Label usage, quiet period, and so many other options is there which is self-explanatory. You can put that in all this value, and you can define that in a view. We'll see that in what is that in once we'll create that in a job. So all will become in one by one while seeing that in more details. Just understand that that will be that options will be available in the configure system. After that we have a Jenkins location. So Jenkins locations we can change that in a URL. So meaning at the moment we are accessing the Jenkins by this URL, you can change that in some other URL as well. So how will we change? If you want to define that in Jenkins DNS, then just you have to open that in Cyclone, then syst and then Windows, and then driver. So these options we'll see that in bit later in a dedicated topic. I don't want to mix, but you can configure that in some other URL as well. What you have, let's say like in a your host domain, and then / Jenkins. So with help of that also you can access it. You can also define that in a some instead of a local host, some other URL into that in our etc file where you can able to access it, and you can also change the port number as well. System and admin email also you can change it if you want, and that will be help it out for understanding that in a, especially sending the notifications email from the Jenkins project owners will be, and so forth. After that we have a options called serve resource files from the another domain. So without a resource root URL, resource will be served from main domain with a context security policy set and so on and so forth. After we have a global properties, so you can put that in a disable defer wipeout on this node, and environment variables, tools location, tool locations, so these ones once we'll create that in job, then we'll see that in what is that in like in disable environment variable, just like in setting the java underscore home or any specific variable if you want which you want to use that in a globally, meaning n number of project in the same variable. So especially like in tool we have a java underscore home, map1 underscore home, or m2 underscore home, and ant underscore home, and many more. So likewise you can put that in here. After that we have a pipeline speed and durability settings. So you can set the pipeline default speed durability level as well, and these are the options we have. So once we'll create the pipeline, we'll revisit that in these options. Let it be by default what we have. Then we have a use statistics where we are going to use the help make Jenkins better to sending enemies uses aesthetics and crash report of Jenkins project. You can choose that in a child item with a a health. After that we have a time stamper where we can put that in a format, what format you are looking for, like in HH, which is a hour, minute and second, HHMMS, and that in S, which is elapsed time per format. You can put that in like in do that in administrative monitor configurations as well. You can, after clicking that in a more, you will be see that in these are the options. You can do that in administrative control. After that we have a global disk cards. So global disk card is nothing but project build directory. You can delete it, or you can put that in where you have a project build directory. By default it will be there into workspace. So we'll talk also once we'll create that in a job. After that you can create the lockable resource manager. So these options also we can see that in what we the resource we can lock it. And then declarative pipeline with a Docker. So Docker also, if you want to use, you can put that in Docker related options. And GitHub API, global pipeline libraries, build time out plugins, build step actions, enable build step actions, Git plugin subversion cell, and extended email notification. So you can configure that in a extended email configurations where you have put that in SMTP server, default user email suffix, default context type, and many more other parameters, which is like in for sending the notifications. After that, we have a email notifications also, like in SMTP server, default user email suffix, and finally we have a cloud options. So after doing all this, just you have to click on that in apply and save, and then that in, let's say, apply and then save, you will be see that in this configurations is save, and you will be able to see that in your changes into the GUI. So in just the overview, what we learn, how to do that in a use that in configure system, which is really required for global setting of a Jenkins. And we'll once we'll start using creating jobs and all, we'll do that in one by one setting, so almost all, and then we'll be understand it. However, if you needed, or like in you're going through that in your configurations and it's mentioned that in you have to do that in setting in the configure system, then you have to come by the like in navigating and just do that in required changes. So that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching.